Hey guys, it's Will here, and today is Sunday, the 24th of April 2016, and it's early afternoon. Now, that is relevant because I have just seen something that Games Workshop have announced that's happening tomorrow, so it's kind of, they've announced that they're going to make an announcement tomorrow. So this is my sort of initial thoughts based on what has been said of what it might be and what I hope it's going to be. So I was on Facebook this morning, just scrolling through, and saw something on Games Workshop's Age of Sigmar fan page. And basically, it doesn't really give you much information. It's basically big news coming tomorrow. So what's that, Games Workshop? Come on. But no, obviously they're giving us a bit of a teaser there to check back with them tomorrow for this big announcement. Now, in the little bit of blurb underneath it, they were saying this is like the biggest news to happen to Age of Sigmar since it was first released about a year ago. So that's obviously got me wondering, what might this be? And I've got my own thoughts on that. But first, before I share them, I just want to share a very quick background on me and Age of Sigmar as a game. So I started playing Warhammer Fantasy, the predecessor to Age of Sigmar, at the start of 8th edition, so that was about 6 years ago now, and I've collected a fairly sizable High Elf force, and also some Orcs. I've got my War Boss here, and this guy, one of my Savage Orc Boar Boys, and I really like the aesthetic of the game, and the backstory is pretty cool as well. I mean, it's not as immersive as 40k, and it's not a backstory I was perhaps invested in, for want of a better word, as much as Warhammer 40,000. But yeah, it's a pretty good game, and for a while I enjoyed it. But the problem was, as time went on, as 8th edition's run carried on, the game got more and more just about these huge hordes of infantry, and basically anything else was just meh. You know, magic was powerful, monsters could be usable, but nothing really beat just big, solid hordes of infantry. And while that's cool for a lot of people, I found it a bit annoying because I like to paint my models to a reasonable standard. I'm not saying I'm, the best painter, but it does mean I'm a little bit slower than some. And certainly with particularly the high elf models, the level of detail that you want to go into on some of them, particularly like Phoenix Scar, they've got some amazing detail on there, but it takes a while to paint. So collecting and painting these sizes of units could really be limiting even for a fairly experienced gamer. I mean, yeah, if you want to do a quick paint job, ink wash, dry brush, etc., then yeah, that's totally cool. But some of the models don't necessarily look that good with just that method. Not that they're bad models, they need a bit of extra time and attention. So it was taking me a very long time to build just a single unit, and then one bad charge and it would all get mucked up on the table because you had so much invested in this one squad. But if you didn't try to go MSU, you just couldn't stand up and break these big hordes of units. I mean, I was frequently coming up against 40 Saurus Temple Guard with a Law of Life Slan casting +2 or +4 toughness to the unit. So, it just, I don't know, the game just felt very clunky to me, and more imbalanced than even 40k was. 40k is not a perfectly balanced game, but, it has some balance to it. But Warhammer Fantasy felt like the balance was really tipping in favour of certain things, and I don't know, it was just losing its appeal. And I know from Games Workshop sales, I wasn't the only one who felt like this, because sales for Fantasy were starting to dip, which is why they had to do something, and what they did was Age of Sigmar. Now, they certainly needed to make a radical change, and you can't say Age of Sigmar wasn't a radical change. They just threw the whole rulebook and the whole backstory out the window and completely started from scratch. So what you get is a 4-page simplified rules and fresh war scrolls for everything, new background that on the timescale is thousands of years ahead, set in a completely different setting. Now, obviously, a lot of people had been playing Warhammer Fantasy a damn sight longer than I was, and were really quite invested in the background and were really sad to see the old world go. Now, I wasn't quite so bothered about that. It was a little bit at first, but I actually quite like the backstory for the Mortal Realms. And as for the changes in the armies, again, I didn't mind them too much. The Stormcast Eternals, going to say something controversial here that might annoy some people. I actually like the look of the Stormcast Eternals and really want to collect them. But there were some big issues with the rules that just keeping people from playing this game at the moment. Firstly is the oversimplification. Now, I actually don't think that's as bad a thing as some people do. I think there's more tactics to it with the way the War Scrolls interact. So the complexity, like in what's it called, War Machine, isn't in the ability, the rules, but in the abilities of the units, and that's where your complexity comes from. So I'm not so worried about that. I think there's still good ways to play the game, and I'm not saying this as someone who hasn't played it. I've had 2 or 3 practice games with it, using my High Elves and Sam's Lizard Men, chucked my Orcs in there a bit, had some test plays of it, and actually, tactically, it's still there on a similar, maybe not quite the same, but, there's still level of tactics is there, like it was in Warhammer Fantasy, which, to be fair, half the time was just 3 hordes of infantry run into each other and annihilate each other anyway, so, yeah. But the big thing that really bugged me was the points, or should I say the lack of points. And this is what I really hope they are fixing and bringing out, or announcing that they're bringing out tomorrow. Because although Warhammer Fantasy was never a perfectly balanced game, I don't think any war game is, and points aren't the complete answer to balance. There's got to be a certain degree of self-regulation there. Points at least give us some structure, somewhere that we can work from. Like, I can call up a mate and say, you want to play a game of 40k? Yep. What sort of points value do you want to do? 1750? Yeah, that's cool. I can get a 1750 army together, and yeah, we'll take it from there. With Age of Sigmar, there isn't anything like that. There's what you can't say 5 War Scrolls, because War Scrolls don't compare. I'm sorry, but you cannot compare a War Scroll that allows you to take a single catapult with a War Scroll that allows you to take Nagash or a High Elf Prince on a Dragon. Wounds don't work, because Saurus Temple Guard are 1 wound, zombies are 1 wound. No comparison at all. There isn't currently a good way to balance the game. There's a lot of fan-made systems out there that tried really hard, a lot of respect to those guys, but then it's kind of, which system do you adopt, because there's so many of them. And what we need really as a community to make Age of Sigmar playable to more people without having to kind of write our own additional rules is just some points values. Please, Games Workshop, give me points values for Age of Sigmar and I might start playing it again. I've got 2 decent sized armies. I've got my Orcs, I've got my Elves. I know people with other Warhammer Fantasy armies just sitting around gathering dust, not being added to because we can't play the game. We just, we need the points to make it work. Now, I know not everybody's a fan of points, and yeah, you're entitled to your opinion if you prefer it without, but for me and a lot of the people in my local gaming group, we need points values to make this game work. So that's what I'm really hoping this is going to be. I have heard rumours of it on the grapevine, but I'm not trusting them until I see it, So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching this video. Sorry if it's got a little bit ranty, a little bit rambly, but hope it was interesting. And yeah, keep an eye out on Games Workshop's website for whatever this big announcement's going to be. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.